What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're finally going to be discussing the pay-to-win bundles for DMZ in Modern Warfare 2. I know many of you guys have probably already heard other content creators talking about this. For me, my primary focus when the update hit was just to get the information out for you guys, because that's primarily what I do. So I realize this is kind of old news and I'm a little behind here, but I still wanted to share my thoughts and opinions on this, because this actually makes me quite nervous for the future of Call of Duty, and I feel like this is the type of thing we need to get on top of quickly, because if we don't, I fear that this is just going to end up getting worse and worse as time goes on. And one last little thing I want to mention here is just keep in mind, I'm not a big DMZ player. I don't play a whole lot, so forgive me if I screw anything up and I misunderstand the way certain things work. My primary focus is, of course, multiplayer, but I worry that stuff like this could end up seeping into multiplayer as well. And diving right in, something you may have noticed if you search through the store is certain packs will have a little DMZ icon on it. And when you click on this, you can see that several of the items have DMZ-specific bonuses that you gain from them. And just a couple examples here, one of the operators will give you a free 2-plate armor vest on spawn every time you use this operator in DMZ. And then there's another one from a different pack, this is the EOD Specialist, that gives you a free medium backpack on spawn. And that means you'll be able to carry more items by default without having to go and find a backpack for yourself. And finding items is one of the core elements of the DMZ mode. On top of this, when it comes to various weapon blueprints that you can buy, they will now have an ensured weapon cooldown of just 15 minutes, so you'll be able to use them again much sooner than the regular guns in the game. And then finally, for these DMZ bonus effects, I also wanted to point out in these bundles, you can get an additional active duty slot, so you can have another operator mixed in there. This one, at least based on my understanding of DMZ, I don't really have much of an issue with, because I don't believe this gives you any direct gameplay advantages or anything. It just gives you an extra slot. Although it would be nice if you could earn these as well. I'm not too sure if you can earn additional slots just through gameplay. But my primary concerns with this are those operator bonuses. Starting off with free gameplay related items that you would normally have to loot for and find in a game mode where the entire purpose of the mode is looting and finding items while also potentially completing missions and stuff. That's where I start to get very concerned, because now you do have a gameplay advantage over the people in your match that don't have those items immediately given to them for free because they didn't buy a bundle. And I will admit, the current bonuses that we're seeing on these operators, they may not seem like a huge deal to a lot of people, like spawning in with a larger backpack, for instance. That's not going to make you win a gunfight any more effectively against other people in the game, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a gameplay advantage going into that. You can immediately carry more items. It might take you less time to loot for your items then, because you don't have to find that medium backpack first, and that allows you to become more powerful more quickly in the match. So technically, I guess you could argue that that may make you more powerful, at least faster or more efficiently, than other players that aren't spawning in with this medium backpack. Additionally, with that 2-plate armor vest, my understanding of this is it's like the tempered perk from Modern Warfare 2019, or the original Warzone at least. Again, I don't really play with DMZ or Warzone, so I might be a little bit off on my understanding of this. But assuming that is the case, and this works like the tempered perk, you're literally going into the match with the ability to get back up to full armor very noticeably faster than people that don't have this 2-plate armor vest. And you get that every time you go into the match because you bought this operator. You didn't have to go in a previous one and find that and extract with it. It's just there for you because you paid for it. Now again, I could see a counter argument to this just being, well, it's not that big of a deal because other people could extract with those items and save them up from previous matches, and they can also spawn in with them immediately. So you're not necessarily doing something that you'd be completely unable to do without buying these operator packs. But the whole thing with this is you're able to do that every single game, game after game after game, without having to put in the work previously to build up those items. And the biggest worry that I have here is that this is going to be a slippery slope. And some other bonus effects have apparently leaked for some future packs that we're expecting. And one of these, for instance, is the ability to have a free UAV every time you spawn in the match if you're using the particular operator that you buy in the store. And that right there is a big gameplay advantage. Immediately starting the match and being able to pop that UAV and find other players that maybe have literally nothing on them, that's now a big deal. That's a big advantage, at least in my opinion. And seeing stuff like this really makes me worry for the future of DMZ. I feel like DMZ launched with a ton of potential. It had a good base to it, but it was missing some things like an economy, for instance. That was the one big thing that holds back DMZ for me, and it's one of the big reasons I don't play DMZ. I don't feel like I really have too many long-term goals to work for, but I would have really liked to see a full-on economy system where you extract with items and you can swap that for cash, and then maybe you want to try to build up as much cash as possible in a season, and you could have like a cash leaderboard. I feel like that's the type of thing that really would have propelled DMZ forward. But instead, after seeing this, it seems like they're regressing with DMZ, and now I don't know if I'll ever want to return to this, whereas if they kept making improvements to it, I probably would have ended up returning to DMZ. And all of this has me really concerned for the rest of the game as well, not just DMZ. I'm worried they're going to start sneaking in little things like this for multiplayer, or for Warzone, for instance. And that kind of terrifies me, and this is why I feel like we should really be pushing back against this. I don't want to be falling back into a system where you feel like you need to spend money in order to gain gameplay advantages, and this is what we started seeing with the supply drop system in the past, where it started off in Advanced Warfare, you couldn't even buy supply drops with real money, and even though it sucked that it was still gambling to an extent to get certain variants of guns that had certain gameplay advantages, you couldn't pay for it, so it wasn't really pay to win. Then Black Ops 3 launched and they had supply drops as well, and at first, all you could get out of those were melee weapons, which were just reskins of the standard melee weapons, so again, not a big deal, until they started putting guns in those supply drops. And those guns were often very powerful relative to the other guns in the game, and therefore you started feeling like if you weren't investing into this system and gambling in the game for these guns, not only were you not experiencing all the gameplay content in the game, you were also now at a disadvantage versus the people that did get those guns out of their supply drops. And now that supply drops are gone, things have been pretty consumer friendly for the most part. You could argue the bundles are too expensive, for instance, but at the end of the day, they were all cosmetic, and so therefore, that argument didn't really hold a lot of weight. And now that's no longer the case. And while it is just limited to DMZ, and you could make arguments that at least the current bundles we can see aren't going to give you like a massive pay-to-win advantage, this is still treading into the pay-to-win territory, and I'm very worried about the slippery slope. I'm worried that they're going to keep pushing the boundaries on this and giving us more and more gameplay advantages in these bundles, and then potentially seeping over into the multiplayer side or the Warzone side of things and giving us minor bonuses there and then ramping those up. I feel like they're testing the waters and seeing what kind of tolerance we have for pay-to-win elements, and this absolutely has me worried for the future, and this is why I feel this needs to be shut down immediately. Normally, my mindset when it comes to buying bundles is I'm probably not going to buy them because I don't really think the cosmetics are worth it, especially in a game where next year you probably won't even be able to use those items, and they don't hold any value, they're no longer relevant. But at the end of the day with these bundles, up until this point at least, my mindset has always been, hey, if it's worth the money to you, you've got that disposable income and you want to make your character look cool, by all means, go for it. Spend your money. It's your money. Do whatever you want with it. It doesn't directly affect me in the game when you have a bundle and I don't. But now we are starting to get to that point where pay to win is starting to seep into these bundles. And therefore, this is one of the rare cases where even though it's your money, I urge you to not buy any of these bundles with these bonuses. I worry that the more support these bundles get, the worse the game and the franchise is going to get in the future. And therefore, if you're supporting this, I fear you may be directly contributing to a potential future of pay to win in other aspects of the game. So there we go. Those are my overall thoughts on these DMZ bonuses in paid bundles in the game. I know I may come off as a little overdramatic here when it comes to this because they're just minor bonuses. It's not really a big deal. But again, for me, the main concern is that this is a slippery slope and they are starting to test our limits as a community to see what kind of pay to win elements we are willing to put up with. Of course, I am curious to hear what you guys are thinking about this entire situation though in the comments down below. Do you think it's fine that they started including gameplay altering benefits in these bundles, even though it is just relegated to DMZ currently? And do you feel like this is them testing the waters and things like this are just going to keep getting worse and worse over time? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.